we're doing. My name is Charlie, and for my thermal topic, I'm going to be talking about the forging process for creating golf irons. So first off, what exactly is an iron? Basically, it's the majority of your golf set. So you know you have like your woods, your irons, your wedges, and your putter. The irons are usually going to be between 7 to 9 of your clubs. The most common set is a 4 through a 9 iron with a pitching wedge added to it. So basically, it's called an iron because when they first came up with the game of golf, it was made of iron, and woods were made out of wood. Actually, I think it's around the 70s to the 80s, 1900s is when actually woods changed over to metal. It's all metal now. Nowadays, it's mostly made of steel, carbon steel. So basically, the profile of an iron is the club head's going to be thin from front to back, and while the face has grooves that are cut into the face, and that helps induce spin on the golf ball, which helps control and shape it. So there are two types of ways to make irons. You have cast irons and forged irons. Basically, cast irons is significantly cheaper. It's what they've done for most of the span of golf. What you do is you basically pour the steel into a mold, it cools. There you go. The problem is it causes bubbles inside of the head. So it's basically like, you know, you pour water and you freeze it and it becomes ice, it has air bubbles in it. It's the exact same thing. It's not gonna, it absorbs sound, so there's a big difference. And whereas forged irons, you shape it by compressing and folding and pressing it. And it gives much more consistency, it's better quality. Like I said, it's also twice as expensive. Also, you can use different steel. With cast iron, cast clubs, they use stainless steel, but whenever you forge it, you can actually use 1025 carbon steel, so it's much better quality. Like you said, for a better player who can really tell the difference in the way their clubs feel, they can really tell the difference between the two. Actually, Mizuno did a thing. Mizuno, in case you don't know, is a Japanese company. They are probably the most well-known for forged irons. They took the exact same club, they made one, forged it, they made another one that was cast, and they gave it to one of their touring pros to hit. The very first time he hit the cast club, he could tell the difference. It almost feels like it comes off dead, it's dull. It doesn't give that pure feel that a forged iron gives. So I'm going to discuss this called the Mura process. Mura is another brand from Japan. They're on the very high end of irons. They're a normal set of irons like TaylorMade, so forged, cost about $1,000. Theirs are between $1,800 to as much as you want to make. They're actually, back in the day, the Mura family was one of the most well-known samurai sword makers, and they changed it, and now they use the same process for their irons. So first, you're going to start with the cross billet, and you pass it through an induction heating process around 1200 degrees Celsius. Then you have 14 seconds to move that to the air hammer for the first strike, and air hammer from there. So basically, this is it's a 1-ton air hammer, and it's actually quite a ways away from their manufacturer. But basically, it hits it 3 times. First is just to flatten it, and then the next is actually to make the first press of the die, and the third is for a second press. So then once you do that, you have 5 seconds between the first and third strike. So then once you're done, you basically have, this is what you get that. And you can see there's kind of like an indentation being made for where the iron's going to be cut out. So then once you finish that, you have to remove the excess metal. So this is basically the inner part of the iron. So then once you do that, you let it cool, and that's what they call the initial forging process. So then they kind of go to the next step, which this is where you bring it back to their main factory. And they heat it up in the furnace, which you can see over there. They do several at a time. And then this changes the density and the grain structure in the metal. And that's basically the end of the actual forging process. So this is basically what happens after the final strike. So once again, that changes the internal composition of the metal. And then the die set is used for the final forging. So what they do, you can see it creates kind of a little tail around the edge. You have to go and trim that off. And then that is basically the finished internal part. And then, you're next. So what they do after that is they bring it to where they hand plate it, they grind it, they put all the grooves, make it all nice and pretty, and this is the final product. This specific brand, this one is about $2 grand for 7 clubs. Next. And that's my references. So basically that's how you produce forged irons. Like I said, it's significantly more expensive, but it's much better quality. They'll last you pretty much as long as you ever put it off. Do you have any questions about that?
What's the purpose of why do they have like this indentation over here? Is that just aesthetic or does it have any kind of function? Like all this.
Okay, that depends on, it's more aesthetic.
Aesthetic.
Yeah, the more it's not really, the more of a gap you have between here, the more forgiving it's going to be. So that's why they like more what they call game improvement irons. They have, it almost becomes hollowed out back there. Basically what it does is it takes the weighting and makes it more perimeter weighting on the iron. So that increases forgiveness. So if you hit it somewhere off center, it's not going to be as bad on your shot. Where the more, with the, they have like blades, the more bladed you get, the more it's basically comes around this curve and it's just a flat back.
This one?
Yeah, so that's a pure blade. So see how there's almost no indentation back there?
Yeah.
Okay, so that means it's much harder to hit, where if you hit it out here, or up here, or on here, anywhere basically but right here, then it's gonna very much more affect the shot. Whereas if the more indentation you get back here, more hollow out, the sweet spot gets closer around the edges. So, any other questions?
I was just wondering about the durability. Like, say, like you heavy rattle all start bouncing down. Before times, like, they last, like, they take more of a beating in that sense.
Okay. They look like they do because with a forged iron, especially around. Go back to the first slide. Okay. So cast irons, you don't notice it as much because it doesn't make any indentation in the metal the same. But with forged, around, especially right here, and right around here usually, you'll start to see like little nibs taken out from when it, impediments in the ground or when the clubs jump up and down. But it doesn't affect the actual performance of the club. It's more of an aesthetic. Like a lot of people don't really like the way it looks, but it doesn't affect the club at all. And it'll start to kind of, it almost looks like a ring around this part. But it doesn't affect the club in any way.
Do you play blades?
Yeah. Well, I have my lower part, like my 7-iron down,